Yo, my name is Cody A. Banks, and today I'll be showing you 3 techniques that I use for adding shadows and highlights to my characters. So I have this little sunshine character that I designed, but it's just flat right now. It needs a little bit of shadow and highlights. I have 3 different techniques that I'll be showing you. Technique 1 is shape by shape. With this technique, we basically add shadows and highlights to each shape individually. So we'll be adding shadow and highlight just to the head. We can add shadow and highlight just to the arm, just to the body. Everything will be separated and grouped together, which is great for animation, which is typically how I end up designing. Technique 2 is outline layer. In this technique, we basically create a new layer which will just hold the outline, so the black outline of the character, and then create another layer underneath that which we can add the shadows and highlights to, so that the shadows and highlights will be on top of the design but beneath the outline. And technique number 3 is the draw inside tool, which I just recently learned about, so I'm still getting used to it, but I'll show you how you can use that technique as well, along with some pros and cons. Okay, so let's start off with the shape by shape technique. We're going to use the firefly as the light source in each one of these designs. So shadow will be on this side, highlight will be on this side. And for shape by shape technique, we're going to just double click into the shape that you want to add a highlight to. So for the head, I want to have a perfect circle shadow right here. So what I'll do is Command C, Command Shift V, and that'll create a new circle that I can drag this way. And what I do is delete this point over here, and we can draw it like this around, and then we'll copy and paste the head again on top, and we can select both of these shapes and go over to your Pathfinder tool and hit intersect. Now we have this moon shape on top. So what we can do now is go over to the color, make it a little bit darker, and then get rid of the stroke. So then one more time, we're gonna copy and paste this head shape and get rid of the fill on that. So now we have the outline, the shadow, and the head. And we can just select each one of those, Command G to group them together. And now we have a head with a shadow. So now that we have this shadow on the head, I want to make this ear so that it blends in with the shadow too. So we'll select the shadow so we can get the color, and we can go over to the ear, double click into there, and just change the color so that the ear matches the shadow color. Now it's blending together real nice. So we can actually go ahead and add another shadow onto the ear. So we can option drag this shape like this, just like we did on the head. Bring the shape back around so that it covers up the part that you want to be the shadow. Copy and paste the ear on top, select both, and Pathfinder tool that. And then what we can do is grab your eyedropper tool with eye, select the color. Since the ear is the same color as the shadow, this shadow isn't showing up, so we have to go even darker. So bring it over a little bit more, and then we'll paste the ear on top again and get rid of the fill. So now we have the shadow on the ear, and I'm going to add just a little circle here with the same color as the shadow, and that'll be underneath those 2 lines right there. And again, group those together, Command G. Cool. So now we have shadow on the head and on the ear. Let's do the sun rays next. So same concept. We're gonna option drag to the right just a little bit, cut it off right here, I would say, and right there. Then we can just delete this, and we're gonna bring this back around. Copy and paste the shape, select both, Pathfinder, and we'll get rid of the fill, and copy and paste the sun ray on top, get rid of the fill. So group those together. We're gonna double click outside of the shape. The shadow is there, but it's not showing up because we didn't change the color yet. So we use the direct selection tool to just select that, and now we can grab the color from the head for each one of these. Okay, that looks good for the head. For highlights, I just do a single stroke that goes right along the inside border of the shape. So we will double click into the head again and select the outer line. Command C, Command Shift V, and we're gonna go left arrow 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's the width of the stroke. So I want this stroke to be white, so we can just grab this white color here, flip it so that the stroke is white, and get rid of the fill. And we'll just delete this point right here, and then send it back so that it's behind the top outline. And now we have a perfect stroke like that. And you might need to go and just adjust this a little bit so that it's not poking out of the top and the bottom. Cool. So now we see our head has shadow, highlight. Okay, and let's do the same thing for the sun ray as well. So copy that, paste it left, 4 points, and we're gonna make that white stroke, and we'll cut it off right here. We can add a highlight to the ear. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eyedropper tool. Select that. Copy and paste that ear on top. Remove the fill. And we can just adjust this a little bit. This is going to be hidden behind the head, so it doesn't matter if it's off a little bit right here. Group that together. Same thing for the body. We'll do like that. Make the blue just a little bit darker and get rid of that stroke, and then we're going to paste that on top again, get rid of the fill, and Command G to group them together. Perfect. Let's add a shadow to the arm right here. Make the bottom of the sweater here the same color as the shadow. So let's copy that hex code and bring it down here. Can't forget the neck, so let's add it. And one thing that I always do for my characters is give this hard shadow underneath the head that I place right on the neck. So this will be on top of the yellow shadow. I like to do that just to separate the head from the body a little bit. It gives it a little bit of depth. So that's already looking quite a bit better. We can add some shadows to the hands and to the pants. I like this technique a lot just because it keeps everything grouped together nicely and keeps things organized. And as an animator, it's great to have everything separated into their own groups. So that is technique number 1. Let's move on to technique number 2. So for this technique, I'm going to create a new layer that will hold just the outline, and then another layer underneath that that will have the shadows and the highlights, and we can just draw using the pencil tool and the pen tool directly onto that layer. So we can create two new layers over here. This top layer will hold the outline, so let's just label that, and then this layer will hold shadows and highlights, and this will be the design that we're working with. So let's just lock these other ones. All right, so in order to make the outline, what I do is select everything, copy it, paste it onto the outline layer, and we can, let's hide the design actually. So what I do next is go up to Object, Expand, and then after that we select everything again and go over to Pathfinder tool and hit Divide. So now everything will be grouped together, and what we need to do is double click in there and select the purple outline that we're using. Go up to Select, Same Fill Color. Command C once everything is selected, and we can go ahead and delete this entire thing now, and Command Shift V, and that'll paste just your outline on top. And let's just go ahead and combine all of this. So we'll go over to the Pathfinder tool and Unite. So now it's one big shape. And we can bring the design back, and you'll see the outline layer is just floating on top. So let's lock this design layer and the outline layer, and we'll go into the shadow and highlights layer, and we can basically just draw right on top of the design. Let's grab this shadow color, and we can just go like that, and then staying within the border of the outlines, kind of go like this. A little sloppy, but it works out. Make a few adjustments. So yeah, as you can see, this technique is nice if you want to do multiple shapes at once. What's not good about it is it's not as flexible if you want to, move the ear into a different position, or, move the eyes into a different position. You can't just drag stuff around the same way you do with technique number one. But it is a little bit easier if you want to just get in there quick and draw without having to worry about clicking into different shapes and all that. One downside to the outline layer technique is it's harder to get shadows like this that are matched up perfectly with the shape that you're trying to add the shadow to. So as you see, everything is pretty much just hand drawn. So this is not as circular as this one. For the shadow and the sun rays, I'm gonna have to go in here and draw this by hand. It's a little bit trickier in that sense. And I like to do highlights a little bit different when I'm using this technique. So I'll draw this shape here. The same way I do shadows. And instead of using this line technique that we did in technique number 1, we'll just draw out the shape the same way that we're doing the shadows. Make it a little bit lighter of a yellow, like that, and hide the stroke. So a little bit different of a look, but I like how that looks too. Alright, and that's it for technique number 2. As you see, there are certain instances where this might work better for you, but there are other instances where it gets a little bit tricky. So for example, doing abstract shapes like this along the border of the sun rays, a little bit trickier. Getting an exact circle, a little bit trickier, but it does give you a little bit more freedom to just draw as you want on smaller shapes like this, where you're just doing simple shapes like that. Here's what it looks like without the outline layer. So we're just drawing right on top of the design. So it's nice if you want to just remove the shadows and highlights, you can do that. Whereas in technique number 1, you can't hide the shadows and highlights, everything's connected and grouped together. So there are pros and cons to each technique, but you can decide which one works best for you. Okay, so our last technique is the Draw Inside tool. I just learned about this tool recently, so I'm still getting used to it, but I do like its functionality and ease. And it's pretty similar to technique number 1 as far as different elements being grouped together with the shadows and the highlights. So we'll start off with the head again. Double click on the head, make sure the head is still selected, and we're gonna switch modes into Draw Inside mode, which is also Shift D. So hit that, make sure this is selected, copy and paste that head on top. And what we'll do is, just like we did in technique number 1, delete this point over here, and we'll bring this back around to cover up the left side of the head. And eyedropper tool, select the darker yellow, and you'll see it automatically crops it for you. So pretty much the same steps as technique 1, except now we don't have to go in and create the top outline layer. It automatically does it for us. So, and we can move this shadow around too if we want, like that. The downside to this is it's a little bit wonky because it's essentially creating a clipping mask. So if we try to click on the head, it doesn't work. You have to click on the shadow in order to select it. So it's a little bit tricky when you're dealing with masks and trying to move stuff around, but as you see, it's a lot easier than using the Pathfinder tool to crop everything out and creating the outline on top. This just does all that for you. So we'll just go ahead and change the ear color to this dark shadow color. Change that fill. Now we're matching there. We'll have to just manually add this circle in the ear. Like that. Send it back. Let's do the same thing for the sun rays. We're gonna go into Draw Inside, copy, paste, bring it over just a little bit, and we'll get rid of this half of the shape. Let's just bring it back around like this, and we grab that yellow again. There you go. All right, so that's it for technique number 3. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this technique. I'm still pretty new to it, but I do like the flexibility of just being able to move the shadows around like this, and it still keeps everything grouped together. But it is a little bit weird that you can't just click on the shape that you want and move it around. You just have to click on the shadow or the highlight instead. So these are the 3 techniques that I personally use when I'm creating a character. There may be better ways to do this, but these are the 3 that I know and the 3 that I work with the most often. So if anybody has any tips or techniques that they want to share with everybody, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace.